Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Punching Annex. My name is Rusty Seabutter,
And I'm Jimmy Burrito.
and we're here doing our little learning series for kind of newer coaches entering into Rebel, especially on the Rel side of the divisions. And the point of the series is to interview coaches up in Division 1 and ask them about the secret of their success. So this week we have with us IsenMike, coach of the USS Sulaco. How you doing?
How's it going? Still in Division 1 for at least another week. So you got me.
It still counts. You still there?
This is a good opportunity because all the coaches we've interviewed so far have been planning to keep their team. I think you're the first one that definitely is not.
I mean, considered, but no. The state the team's in now. It's just, I always said that sort of like if I was gonna get knocked out of Div 1, probably consider, because this team has been through so much. I've lost Saurus like nobody's business, and everyone's like, "Oh man, you gonna reroll? You gonna reroll?" I was like, "Nah, I can, whatever. I'm still in the middle of the table. As long as I can keep rebuilding and keep going and stay in Div 1, I like playing against the tough competition too much. That, as long as I can stay here, but." The way the team is now and the way the division is, it's, I wouldn't want to stay in Div 1 because there's no way to rebuild with so much like Claw and Bash, and even dropping down a division, the team is just kind of, and I'm getting a little tired of just constantly rebuilding. So
yeah, it looks like the baling wire and duct tape finally fell off.
Finally gave way. Yeah.
Well, for those, especially for newer coaches that aren't familiar with you or your team, why don't you give a little kind of introduction and history of the USS Sulaco?
Yeah, so joined in Season 2, back when we were the RELG man, before we were Rebel, and it wasn't particularly active at that time. Season 2, I think almost half, if not just over half, of my matches that season were no-shows, so that was kind of an easy win, and then I went into Season 3 in Div 1 because they sort of shuffled me up there. And been there Season 3 to Season 7, so 5 seasons in Div 1 and 1 season in Div 2. And yeah, was made an admin season or 2 ago, and yeah, just been around, kicking around.
But you've been playing Blood Bowl for a while longer than that, right?
A bit, not actually that much longer. I actually got it in November of 2015, or like basically Fallout 4 came out, and I was looking at it and going, "Oh, I kind of want to get Fallout 4, but I know that if I get Fallout 4, it's just going to take up way too much of my time. I've spent too much time playing that game, so I can't." But I've always been curious about Blood Bowl. I've had friends who are into it, and I've been interested. And, it looks like Blood Bowl 2 is on sale. Maybe I'll just check that out instead, just on a lark. And then 1,500 hours in Steam and hours of travel and painting little miniatures later. It's like maybe I should have just stuck with Fallout 4 if I didn't want to be spending so much time in it. But it's fun, yeah. So it's been about a little over 2 years since I started playing.
Yeah. Yeah, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the top Lizard coaches in traditional tabletop Blood Bowl in the country or the world or something like that?
In the U.S. So in the NAF tournament rankings, got the number 5 Lizardman ranking it for the U.S. I haven't looked worldwide recently. It was 30 something, but yeah, number 5 after about a year on the tournament scene. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, here's a little fun Blood Bowl histrionic for everybody. Mike and I took a road trip down to Virginia to play in the Immortal Cup together, and my shitty goblins totally tanked the season.
It was good for me though, because it was a team. It's a team tournament, so you had four coaches in a team, and then it was like Swiss within Swiss. So your whole team gets matched up, depending on how you do per round against a whole other team, and then each of the coaches in there get matched up depending on the performance within the 4. And so our whole team as a whole wasn't doing fantastically well, and so it made the competition a little easier, I think, for me. In the other matches, which helped my ranking, helped me get to that number 5 spot, because it was the major tournaments actually count for double ranking.
Yeah, I was pulling you down into the lower competition.
Yeah, that's good. And then the other guy on the team, Doombeard Dave, who just like his goal at every tournament is to get most casualties, and I think he won maybe one of the 6 matches, but he kept getting tournament points from all the casualties he was getting, so I wasn't even like top ranked within our team based on tournament. It helped.
And if I remember, he got the thing for the most casualties in the tournament.
I do believe he did. Yeah, he got most casualties. Yeah.
Yeah, so he got what he's looking for. He's listening to slow jams.
Yeah. He had his iPhone with like a bunch of slow jam. I think it was sort of psychological warfare.
So, Lizards are your favorite team? Do you have other playstyles, or you're pretty much only play Lizards?
Well, I sort of learned how to play the game with Lizards. So I played through the campaign in Blood Bowl 2 just to learn the rules with humans. And I just was like, oh, which one of these teams do I want to start playing online? And I picked Lizards, and I just stuck with them for a very long time. Basically learned how to play the game playing them. So got something like 400 or 500 Lizardman matches on Blood Bowl 2. And I've played other teams. I like and I'm pretty good with Orcs and with Norse. I was the 2nd ranked Orc team in the first season of the championship ladder, and of course won the huge Jackman Cup with Norse, and also this season when I was acting as a mentor coach in the college league and the rookie league. Tried to handicap myself by only taking the 87 human pieces, but got lucky enough on the skill rolls and the lack of attrition that I ended up sort of wiping the floor there. And if I reroll, I'll probably be going North. Partly just because it's when you take a team that's supposed to be, hardy and strong in AV9 and not supposed to be, and they keep dying. It's sort of heartbreaking. But if you take a team that is a glass cannon in AV7 and you expect to die, I feel like it's going to be a little bit easier to cope with when you take that. So.
Yeah, and is that kind of the advice you'd give to young coaches, or any other advice? But basically, people looking to kind of come into the league in the lower, like in the letter divisions, and work their way up. Ideally to 1. Like, what kind of advice would you encourage them with?
Yeah, well, take a team that I'd say get some practice in the ladder, either champion or open, or in the rookie league, to figure out a team that you could enjoy playing for the long haul, and that and then just be prepared to it's like managing a real sports team. You're gonna have some good seasons, some bad seasons, some good games, some bad games. Your players are gonna cycle through. You're not gonna your star this week might be totally missing for the next season. So just find a team that you like to play with, whatever state that it's in, and learn to enjoy rebuilding. Because if you want to be in it for the long haul and sort of stick with the team for a while and build your way up there, it's gonna take some hits. You're gonna take some losses. So if you don't enjoy the trying to play the underdog story and come back from behind and do more with less, then you may just find out you're having more fun just trying a different team every. If you want to stick with it, find the team that you like and that you can enjoy losing with. I mean, not losing with, but
or losing players.
Yeah, losing players with. But if you can learn to enjoy the trying to live that underdog story and sometimes making it times. I feel like I'm a pretty good coach, but I've been solidly middle table in Div 1, but the competition there is so good that I feel pretty proud to have been a solidly middle table player in Rebels Division 1 or Rebels Division 1.
I do think that's good advice, because I think a lot of people do struggle with, especially in an Eternal League format, if you're used to playing like single season TV 1000 leagues or things like that. it can be tough to adjust to stacked teams full of Mighty Blow and Claw and other damaging things, and having to kind of cycle through players even on bad, like even as orcs. I'm finding, they're not AB9 is kind of a lie, and you're still going to lose guys periodically when you think you shouldn't, and learning to cope with that is, I agree, I think that's very important.
Yeah, and you should look at your schedule and look at the other teams and realize there's some matchups you're just not gonna win. And you should always play to win. You should always go in at the beginning being like, I'm gonna play this smart. I'm gonna hope to get some good dice. I'm gonna hope my opponent gets some bad dice. I'm gonna play to win. But you gotta realize there's a point where preserving your team for the rest of the season is gonna do you better in the long run. I've definitely had a few matches where it was just like, Claw, Mighty Blow piling on and just taking out most of my team, and the only way to keep the rest of it alive was to just start fouling on ridiculous, unlikely fouls in the hope that they get sent off.
Yeah.
And that's not something anyone wants to do. No one wants to be that guy. No, that's sort of a it's a low down sort of nasty way to play a game. But if you're gonna lose the game and you're gonna just get everybody killed, do what you can to keep that from happening, so that the next match, this match you may not be able to, but the next match you might be able to if you have a team left.
So when you were building USS Sulaco, what kind of approach did you take to pulling these guys together? Because at one point they were pretty impressive. I think at the start of the season
start of this season we were actually looking better than they had in a while, and then it only took a couple of matches for that to start deteriorating. But that's sort of the story of the team. They've only got one player on the roster left who's actually been there since back in season 2 when they started. But generally, there's two sort of ways to play lizards, and some people see them as a bash team, and I tend to see them more as a control team. And I think they're built better for control. The fact that the Saurus have agility 1, so if they get marked, it's really hard for them to go anywhere. And they don't start with any skills. They've got great skill access, but with no agility and no starting skill, that's hard for them to gain SPP. So I find they're usually, when I think of a bash team, I think this is a team that either wants to get everything stuck in the middle of a pitch in a scrum, or a team that focuses on just removing opposing. So basically your dwarf teams and your
chaos
and necro, either or orcs as well. Sort of just they're happy to be in a big scrum.
I've kind of adapted to playing them more control personally. I think I've almost kind of looked at lizards and taken a page out of that about keeping spread of your 4-strength guys and controlling parts of the field with it.
Yeah, I know. I think that's true. I think orcs are definitely sort of a mix of the two types of control and bash. But yeah. So lizards don't want to get stuck in a scrum in the middle of the pitch. The Saurus are built to take a hit, but they don't really want to get in a fight. Their main job is to sort of clear a path and control the pitch, so that your skinks, we're the only pieces on the pitch who can move the ball really, can do that, can get to where they go. Or to just try and control the pitch in order to prevent your opponent from moving the ball on their offense, and so that you can hopefully find an opportunity to sack and steal. But less so much about just getting everyone stuck in or focusing on removals, because when you start with no skills, strength 4 is great for hitting dudes. Don't get me wrong. You don't start with block. There's no way you can dodge. You got a 1 in 3 chance of dodging away, which is not very good. And a 1 in 3 chance of picking up the ball. So they're not going to really be ball carriers. They're not really going to have the mobility to get them where you need them to go if they're marked. But they do have that six movement, so they're pretty fast for a strength 4 piece if you can keep them moving. And I think a lot of the key thing to learn when people are starting with lizards is how to do that, how to keep your Saurus free. And some of that'll come down to sort of playing them in pairs, so that one Saurus can block another Saurus free, keeping your eye open always for any push play opportunities that you can get. My game with Sace this season came down to that. I actually kept him from scoring in the first half, even though it looked really, really unlikely for me for most of it, just because he didn't see a push play that let me free one of my swords to sack his ball carrier. He had all my swords very well marked, but a couple of, like 2 or 3 blocks later, I was able to maneuver things in positions so that one of them was free and can the blitz. So it's really looking for those opportunities and sort of getting your swords to work together to free each other, and then when you need to, of course, to blitz itself. But it's always better to if you can free a source with a block from another source rather than a blitz, because then you can actually use the blitz to hit something, besides just the guy you happen to be stuck to in order to move. That's not usually the ideal. Ideally, for most teams, the blitz is like, who do I really want to hit? Like, which of these pieces is the best target, is the juiciest target, whether it's the ball carrier or whether it's some key positional that you really want to smack around. If you're just using that blitz to free up a piece so that you can fix your positioning and screen better or something, then you'll do it if you have to. I certainly will. But if you can find a push play or keep your source in pairs so that one can block another free, that's always going to be the way to do it. And that takes a lot of practice to learn how to do and learn how to set that up, and to see those push plays in general, just when they're there.
Normally, we would ask here, what would it take for you to consider re-rolling? I'm popping open your team roster right here just so people can see what it looks like. I don't know that maybe we'll slightly amend the question for you. Is more like, what was the moment, or what was the injury, or what was the event that basically cemented for you that you were going to re-roll?
I would say the game this season against 130, because I took in that match. I had at that point an armor bust and I think a movement bust on Tusaurus, and a like level 4 guard break tackle block Croxagore, and in that match somehow Croxagore died and I took 2 more movement busts, and at that point it was like just sort of struggling to keep mid table in Div 1. It seemed like trying to rebuild from that point with the like half of my Saurus missing a point of movement and one of them being a lot more fragile than he should have been, just seemed like it was going to take a season and a half, and not a season and a half I would have been like in Div 1, because like in Div 1 it would have been a season and a half of just spiraling further down the drain. So I thought maybe I drop down into a lower division to try and rebuild. And my thinking previously was that if Pharaoh, the sort of legendary skink that I had, dies, I'd consider doing that. And if he lives, I didn't want to bring him down into a lower division. Partly just out of respect for the player, if that sounds goofy. We survived for however long in a ridiculous amount of time for any skink, but most certainly one with a niggling injury and a target on his back with agility 5. So survived for so long in the meat grinder at Div 1, I didn't really want to have him die an ignominious death in a lower division, but now it also just the fact that he was 220k worth of skink. So trying to rebuild when your TV is so high compared to where the rest of your team really is. You had a 15 or 1700k team for most of the season that wasn't really a 15 or 1700k lizard team. It was like a 12 to 1300 lizard.
Yeah. K
lizard team with a stupidly bloaty agility 5 legend skink on it. So you're not going to get that. You're going to be giving away inducements instead of getting them, and it's just going to be a lot harder to get the skills on the players that aren't very involved. Then now that he did die, he also I had to fire that armor busted Saurus because he took a strength bust, and I'm looking at the team going, is there anything here? Like besides Vasquez, who's been with the team since the beginning, it's basically a rookie team. I look like I've been playing half a season, except I've got more injuries than I should. So might as well reroll at this point, and just getting so kind of a little frustrated with the papered armor 9. I think before the stats server went down, I was looking at it and it had was like pretty far in the lead for most casualties in all of Rebel this season, and that was before. I think when I looked at that was before I got completely pitch cleared and had an auto concede against Nosedive. And for having the highest number of casualties staying, I wasn't even in the top 10 for armor break. So it's just been some really terrible, injury dice, hot injury dice for my opponents this season. And it gets frustrating, and it's like getting tired of armor 9 just failing every time. I might as well take armor 7 if I'm gonna have pieces that are gonna just get the crap beaten out of them, and I'm gonna keep having to replace. I might as well take a team where I expect that to happen, not one where it's supposed to be kind of, because the team that broke me this season wasn't even one of the Claw team. I think most of those injuries, if I recall, weren't even with his Mighty Blow pieces. So it's like,
maybe it was Nuffle's way of letting you know it's time to
let
these guys rest.
Yeah, and part of that is my playstyle. I say control, like the control lizards, and that team tends to mean your lizards get hit a bit more, because you're putting them in the way. You're treating them like roadblocks, and a roadblock is going to get run over now. So they probably take more punches than they would if I was playing them as a bashy team. But I don't think I would have, this season notwithstanding, I don't think I would have been winning as much as I had I been.
So, do you have any general advice for new players coming up about building a team, skill choices, picking a favorite team?
Building a team depends on what team you're playing. I can give advice for lizards. I think that one of the things it took me a little while to grasp when I first started playing lizards was TV blow. And lizards are a team that really struggle with that because your skanks are going to be basically the only ones who can handle the ball for the most part. They're going to be scoring all your touchdowns and soaking up most of the FVP. But they only have agility access, and they start with the best agility skill, dodge, anyway. So once you get 2 skills on them, if they keep scaling up without rolling doubles or a stat, you really don't want them on your team. I've seen people buy a 5th skink really early, and generally I feel like you want a good balance of, I really wouldn't want to buy a 5th skink unless most of my Saurus already have block. You want to make sure that the Saurus and Croc side of the team is well balanced in terms of build and just terms of TV, compared to the skink side, because the skinks are gonna suck up all that SPP, start growing in terms of team value, and if they outstrip the Saurus side of the team too greatly, you're going to be giving up inducements or not getting the inducement good, and your team is just not going to fare well against similarly valued teams, because it's mostly in agility skills that aren't really as good. General skills, strength skills, a lot of those are great skills to take and are always going to be useful, but beyond dodge, a lot of the agility skills are very hit or miss in terms of how useful they are, and you can make them useful. There's certainly, a diving tackle and sidestep are great skills to take on a skink, but when you're by the point when you're taking sure feet and sprint and looking at jump up, it's like those are going to come into play maybe once a game, twice a game. It's nice to have that reliability, but is it really worth 20k of extra TV? Probably not.
Do you kind of follow the if they get 2 regular skills and no doubles or stat ups, you fire them kind of model?
Yeah, I'll let them have 2. So if they get sidestep and diving tackle, but if they get that third skill, and it's not a double or a stat, I was super happy when Gorman got that third skill recently on my team. I was like, shit, this is one of my only developed skinks left besides Pharaoh, and I'm gonna have to cycle him because he's got his third skill, and oh, thank God it was blocked. But then of course he took like a niggling injury, so this team is just a sob story. But
well, that's the beauty of Blood Bowl, right? You learn to lose and laugh and love and cry.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, and the same thing happened with the last Croxagore. Like Croxagore is another one where, it's not that having more than 2 strength skills is, but there's certainly I tend to guard is usually want to take first, and then there's sort of 2 different schools of thought with break tackle versus stand firm, and I think both of them are equally valid. I tend to go break tackle, and every time I get to that second skill, I'm like, this time I'm going to go stand firm just to mix things up, and then I talk myself out of it and break tackle. Just because having
6 movement.
Yeah, the 6 movement, being able to place that prehensile tail in that guard where it's going to be the most useful, whether or not he's marked, I just find so useful. Like, stand firm is great just to make him a serious roadblock, and especially with guard. If you're playing Lizards as a bashier team, I think that's probably go, because you want to have everyone in a scrum, and you've got this piece helping everyone else get hits and is keeping the opponent stuck in one place. But if you're playing them as a bit more mobile and a bit more a control team, you want to spread out, have a proper rather than just a scrum in the middle of the pitch. Being able to move him is super useful, and also there's also just a strength 5 break tackle means that he can cage dive into 3 tackle zones on a 4+ if you're desperate, which has definitely pulled me on fire a couple of times. Sacked the ball when I didn't away. But then you could take stand firm after that if you took break tackle the first time, and then I guess it's not terrible. But you really want to get block on it, and the more skills you get, the longer it's going to take the next skill. So if you get to the point where you've got 3 skills on him, and you can afford it, and you can afford to lose a guard piece and the skills that he does have on him, it's definitely something to think about replacing him, just so he's 6 SPP away for another chance to hopefully roll doubles, rather than being 31 to 76.
Yeah.
45 points SPP away,
without block.
Yeah. So it's a huge amount of difference in terms of just getting another opportunity to roll an improvement roll on him once he's got a couple of skills on, compared to when he's fresh. So that's another piece that definitely could get cycled.
Yeah.
Not so much because it's bloat, but just because having block is so useful. Getting the opportunity to make those skill rolls and hope for doubles more often, because it's less SPP for the first few skills. Usually worth it if you can spare 140k to replace him and aren't relying on his skills you have put on guard.
Yeah, I think that's generally good advice. I think it can apply to a lot of teams, but Lizards in particular are so hyper specialized that way.
Yeah, and they're definitely a team that there's only a few teams where the big guy is absolutely mandatory, and Lizards is definitely one of them. You can't really play Lizards without a Croxagore, so cycling the big guy is generally tends to be a pretty good idea for a lot of teams, but but because it's such a key part of the general, but expensive, so
true that. Well, hey Mike, I think we're just about out of time, but I wanted to say thank you again for coming on. We're super honored to have had a chance to catch you while you were still in Div 1. I'm sure you'll be back.
Yeah.
And did you have any closing thoughts you wanted to close out with?
Yeah, you put me on the spot. Just everyone, keep playing and keep at it, and don't just rebuilding is part of. There's a lot of people who like they freak out, they lose a couple of players, and they're like, oh fuck, we're never gonna, my whole season is ruined. But part of the fun is that like underdog sports, story of like the comeback story and the underdog story, and it's part of the drama of sport and the drama of the game. And you can lose a couple of games, and you don't have to take it personally. If someone's got a better team than you, then it's unlikely you're going to win, but you do your best, and that's part of the fun of the game.
And sometimes it happens.
Yeah, exactly. When it does happen, when you're coming in with the weaker team and it looks hopeless, but you manage to pull it off, it's an amazing feeling. So keep at it, and there's no reason to scrap a team just because you've lost a couple of players. If you're in a division that's full of claw and you've got a rookie lizard team to rebuild, maybe think about scrapping at that point. But yeah, I mean, I've been rebuilding this team over and over again after 6 seasons. I think I've proven that I can do it. I'm a little tired of it, so I'm going to try something else. But generally, yeah. If you want to stick with it, make sure you know what you're getting into, because that's part of the game. Is building up and falling down and then picking yourself back up again. So
That's great advice. And thank you again for coming on. Signing off, this is Rusty Seabutter.
Give me a burrito.
And why don't you say goodbye and then show the nice people the door, Mike.
All right, thanks for having me, and I'll see you on the pitch.
Yeah.